Coming to you not live from the Garage of Solitude, I'm Mario Francisco Robles.
I'm Brett Miro, human cyborg relations.
And this is the Fanboy Podcast. Welcome to episode 144, everybody. Yes, we are a few days late, but we're making it up to you. This week, we're going to have not one, but two episodes of the show to share with you. And, before I get into how I've been, Brett, how the hell have you been since we last spoke?
I've been okay,
Yeah.
just getting through the beginning of April. Really slow sales month. March was a very light sales month.
Yeah,
This month
people
starting out
aren't
real
buying
slow.
booze as much as
Yeah,
they
people are.
should be.
I think that the price at the pump is, no one has extra money for booze. I don't know what it is.
Yikes! Yeah, well, that is a pretty good point.
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, on my end, well, there's the whole reason we're delayed, which is
Yeah.
I on Thursday tested positive for COVID-19. The plague finally hit me after 2 years of successful avoiding this damn thing. It finally got me. Thankfully, it ended up just being no more than like a cold. It was pretty minor,
Yeah. It
and
comes
I
for
was
us all.
fine. Yeah,
I had it
but
in
that's
January.
it. Oh, you see, you got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now I got to tell you, I'm not too impressed with it. After all this hype, I kind of, it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
So anyway, honestly, the biggest thing I got out of COVID was getting to stay home alone because my wife took the kids out to the in-laws for a few days so that I wouldn't get anybody else sick. Because by the way, my wife is due to give birth in a week. So the timing of all this is just
Not
crazy.
good.
Me getting COVID now and she's about to pop, and it's, but it all worked out. She went to my in-laws with the kids. I had the house to myself all weekend, and I got to watch all kinds of goodness that I've been putting off forever. Like I watched all 9 episodes of Marvel's What If series, which
Nice. Nice.
it's amazing. I also watched all 7 episodes of the Loki series there on Disney Plus.
Finally, that's a good one.
Finally.
Yeah.
And even the Lego Batman movie, I believe it or not, the Lego Batman movie was one of those that I just never got around to doing, and I finally treated myself to that. So I guess COVID was a blessing in disguise where I got to just veg at the house and watch epic stuff and play video games and sleep all day and not have to worry about anything. So I've been watching a lot of stuff. What have you been watching, Brett?
Yeah, so not too. I mean, we'll talk a little bit later about stuff in the superhero realm, but I
Yeah.
actually just finished up this really great high concept sci-fi series. I may have mentioned it before. It's called Severance.
Oh,
It's on Apple
yes.
TV Plus. Ben Stiller produced and directed, I think, like the first couple episodes, and I think like
Yeah.
the final couple. That just wrapped up. Awesome show.
And it's
Can't
got that
recommend it
guy
enough.
from Parks and Rec in it, right? What's
Adam
his
Scott,
name?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, amazing cast. It's Adam Scott, John Turturro, Christopher Walken is in it.
What? I didn't hear about
Patricia
that.
Arquette. Yeah.
Wow.
And then there's some other. There's another guy. He's been in like everything. He's like this like little heavy set dude with glasses. He's a little balding. He's in like every show. I don't know his name.
Okay.
I could look it
That
up, but
guy.
whatever. That guy. You if you see him, you're like, oh, I've seen him a
Yeah.
million times.
Okay.
He's usually
All
like a
right.
weird, quirky character, and he's kind of weird in this too, but a
Yeah.
much bigger role than he's like ever had before.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the show's tremendous. I'm like not gonna say anything honestly because it is one of those shows that I think also upon like rewatches, there's just so many little details they pepper throughout. But it's
Yeah.
yeah, I mean
It's
it's based
interesting
on
seeing Ben Stiller head into that sort of territory. It's like a
yeah,
thriller, you said?
yeah,
Like
it's
sci-fi?
it's like high concept sci-fi. So yeah, I would give it like a thriller mystery kind of
Huh.
vibe, dark comedy maybe at
Yeah.
points. But yeah, no, it's really weird and yeah, as I always say, give me all the weird, the weird stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's how I felt
Yeah.
watching What If. I wasn't really sure what to expect. And it's funny. I guess I'm still kind of a snob when it comes to animated stuff. To this day,
Sure.
there's a part of me that's like, animated, it's for kids, you know? And for better or worse, that was part of my barrier into giving What If a shot. But it's funny how like little it takes for me to think, oh, okay, this is cool. I saw that it was rated TV 14, and just knowing that for
Right.
whatever reason, made me feel like, oh, okay, so I'm not just watching Saturday morning kid cartoons here. So that helped me get over that little hump. But other than that, I wasn't sure what to expect. I don't tend to dig on a lot of animated stuff in general, but I was totally blown away. I mean, the production value, having most of the real voices, having all this great music, this amazing elevated concept of watching these bizarro sort of elseworld tales. I call them elseworld tales as a DC fan, but for them it's just that same idea of like, what if, and you do this one unique twist on on a story that we're all very familiar with, and it takes it in a whole different direction. And it was it was just a trip. It was such a trip. I love the Watcher. I love hearing Jeffrey Wright as the Watcher.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm like, how great is the Watcher?
Yeah,
Jeffrey Wright is him.
And he's already exemplifying the multiverse, right? He's Commissioner Gordon in the Batman, and he's the Watcher in Marvel. But yeah, I mean, I'm like, there's lots of different ways I can go on Marvel What If, but the Doctor Strange episode, I have a feeling, is going to factor in very big into this Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. That's
the
coming.
Trailer kind of like already alluded
right?
to. There is, if I'm not mistaken, in the trailer. So there's not a spoiler. It's in the trailer. Their evil Doctor Strange does show up in the trailer.
Yeah, the Strange Supreme, right?
Yeah, so 100% that's going to factor in. And yeah, I mean, there's like rumors about I've only seen actually like the first 2 episodes of What If, so
okay.
or maybe I guess 3. It wasn't Doctor Strange the third one, so I might have seen like the first 3.
It was the 4th, yeah.
Okay, so I'm somewhere in there. I didn't see the whole thing, but I heard there's some rumors that Haley Atwell's Captain Britain.
Really?
Is she called Captain Britain in that? Yeah, they do call her that, right?
I'm not sure what they called her. I think they were just calling her like Agent Carter, but she was awesome.
Yeah, but her Captain America, supposedly there's been rumors about that may show up in a Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. So we'll see. But yeah, apparently and I think there's also been shot of zombie Doctor Strange. So possibly the Marvel zombies may also factor in. So yeah, Doctor Strange is certainly becoming a must see.
I'm making a connection in real time, Brett.
A
year ago, something I just made a connection. Last year on this here show, I unveiled a small casting scoop, and I pointed out that it's not a spoiler because I have no idea how they're being used or what it's not a plot thing, but on the official cast list for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness was the actress who plays Agent Carter. And Haley Atwell. And it didn't, at the time, since I hadn't seen Marvel's What If and I didn't know anything about that stuff, it's just, I didn't know what to make of it. And I announced it on this show, just like, hey, interesting. Looks like they've got some sort of plan for Agent Carter. But now that I've seen that Marvel's What If, I'm like, oh, I feel like that might be
what a scoop.
Confirmation. Yeah, an even bigger scoop than I realize now.
Right.
So that's going to be interesting to.
So basically, 100% that's happening.
Yeah. Oops.
Done deal.
Now I kind of did spoil something, didn't I?
Yeah.
But yeah. See, you got to finish all 9, dude. You got to.
I know. I have to go back. It's funny because like you were the one that's so behind on all the Marvel shows. I've literally watched every other one. I'm like up on everything except for that one. Well, and that's the one that seems to have the most impact on things.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because now after doing What If and after doing Loki, which I think is also great, although it made me never want to hear the acronym TVA again. The amount of times that they said the time, whatever, agent, the TVA, we got to stop the TVA. Have you heard about the TVA? The TVA did this, the TVA. How do we? I'm like, if we could do a TVA drinking game on Loki, and we'd be obliterated.
But Owen Wilson.
There's Owen Wilson talks. But yes, Owen Wilson was there and he was great. He was at the top of his game in a character that I wasn't sure what to make of him at first, but I ended up really liking his character.
Yeah. It was he had a good arc. Yeah.
And also, like, I guess this is where it helps to like go into these things not knowing too much. I had thought that it was just going to be a limited series. I didn't realize that Loki will return in season 2. Like, I can't believe, like, there's a part of me that remembers when Tom Hiddleston's contract, his original contract, was coming to an end, and it started seeming like he's about to sort of segue out of this role, and he was starting to catch on. He had done that Hank Williams movie, and he was kind of, branching off, and it seemed like, okay, he kind of outgrew Loki. But I guess not. They brought him back for
those paychecks from Disney are just too
keep those paychecks
sweet.
coming and keep the scripts trippy and inventive like Loki was. And I guess we're going to keep Tom Hiddleston in the loop for a while. Listen, I'm not going to complain. I love his Loki. I love Hiddleston's portrayal of him. And I love the creative conceit of the series. So keep them coming. But yeah, I loved that.
Let's chat real quick though.
Yeah.
So obviously, what did you think of the ending? Because the final episode or two basically teased the next big bad for the future, whatever the future Avengers or Marvel team up is going to be.
Yeah. Now this is a spoiler for anyone who has not watched Loki. Yes. Here's your tiny spoiler warning. You may want to jump ahead a minute or two. Because, yes, we're about to discuss the big bad that is revealed at the end of Loki, who's going to be seemingly the big bad moving forward in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in some way, shape, or form. You've been warned. Skip ahead. Okay. So, yeah, Kang the Conqueror, played by that guy from Lovecraft County. He was amazing.
By that guy.
I don't know his name off the top of my head, but I know there's all this buzz around that show, this buzz around him. And when I saw him on the screen, all I really knew of him was that, oh yeah, that's that guy that everyone talks about from that show that everyone watches but me. And he was great though. I was fully hooked in this Kang character. I wanted to know more about him. I found myself, I was uneasy. I was made uneasy by him, but I also found him sort of charming and interesting and compelling.
He's also not technically Kang either. So I don't think that is the personality he's not necessarily going to have when we actually meet Kang the Conqueror. He's true. The one who remains. He's the one who won out against all the other Kang variants.
Yeah.
And set this whole thing up. But it is, well, I'll finish your thought because then I have a little question for you.
No, I just wanted to say, what an interesting and unique way to meet the next big bad, or at least, we're getting there. And who'd have thought, there was a time when Marvel's TV series were so detached that people didn't watch them because it's nothing that happens there is going to have any bearing on the big screen. And here's Loki totally establishing a precedent now that something pretty major actually can happen on these shows, and right. Marvel's What If is doing that too. And Winter Soldier and Falcon is setting up Captain America 4. These TV series are coming out guns blazing. But what were you going to ask me?
So someone smarter than me or just has more time than me may have kind of pieced this together or figured it out already. But there is kind of an interesting thing. So Loki sort of implies that a multiverse has already existed before the events of Spider-Man No Way Home and Doctor Strange's spell. Yeah. Because the one who remains basically tells us as much, and that the TVA is what's kind of keeping it all in check. And then at the final ending of Loki, where Girl Loki kills the one who remains, that totally eventually it shows that is the start of the multiverse. Yeah. But we're being led to believe that the multiverse was the result of Doctor Strange's spell in No Way Home. And even though he kind of corrected it at the end of No Way Home, obviously in Multiverse of Madness, something did not go back together all the way. So I'm just confused on was the multiverse always there, or who created it?
Yeah, I'm
there's
pretty
a weird thing there.
There's definitely a weird connection, but after watching all of Marvel's What If, I'm given the impression that the multiverse has always been around, and the Watcher has been watching through the multiverse for basically eons. But these recent events and stuff that happened in No Way Home, and especially what's going to happen in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and I think a little bit of this WandaVision and Loki stuff, there's some recent events that are going to cause the multiverse to basically sort of explode and have all this, chaos that's on the way.
Emerging, but I think it's then is what we're seeing, right?
Yeah.
Actual rather than them being in their own nice little neat little rows.
Yeah,
Now
there's
they're
going to
all
be some
crisscrossing.
convergence.
I guess that's
Yeah.
probably what they're going for, but it just it was a little weird because I was like, so I thought Loki addressed this already, and then No Way Home, I was like, huh? And then like speaking the trailer for Doctor Strange, I'm like, so what are you trying to do here? Like, don't like it's already confusing enough. Let's not make it more confusing. Can we just have like a straight start point? So but whatever.
I got you. Well, look, more will be revealed. I mean, look, when this Doctor Strange sequel is doing insane record pre-sale business, and I have a feeling this is going to be the one that makes me drag you to the real IMAX in the city, so you could see in the Multiverse of Madness on a screen the size of
life. We'll have to do that,
right? It'll be the experience that you need to have for that movie.
Sure.
But yeah, it's funny watching all this stuff did end up making me more excited for the Doctor Strange movie. And it's crazy to think that like a few years back, Doctor Strange was kind of a kooky side character that hardcore Marvel fans knew and loved. But like, I don't think anyone really had any real fondness for outside of like the Marvel faithful. Right. And through that solo movie, and then especially through Infinity War and Endgame, he's become like a very prominent, very likable, very seminal Marvel hero. And then he looks like he's going to be a linchpin for everything that's coming next.
And a solo movie that was a little middling, if at least for me. And I agree. I think overall, like money-wise too, is kind of middling compared to the rest of the Pantheon. But yeah, now he is like kind of the guy. He's the guy.
He's become the guy. Yeah. And Sam Raimi is directing the sequel. So I can't wait to see what sort of, inventive creativity he brings to that. And yeah, who'd have thunk that I would end up a Doctor Strange mark all of a sudden at this point, at this point in my life. But we're going to switch gears now to a different hero with a red cape, because it is time for the Superman on film update for April 11th, 2022.
Yeah.
And well, folks, it's another big old goose egg. Here we are. The streak continues. I did a search even just right before we recorded in case there was some miraculous breaking news that I've somehow missed. And no, there is still no firm information about a reboot. There's no firm information about whether or not Henry Cavill will ever be seen again. There's no firm information about anything whatsoever regarding a certain Kryptonian named Kal-El being Superman on a big screen anytime soon. So unfortunately,
super lame, super disappointing.
Super lame, super disappointing. There's no Superman on film update for this week. But you know what? I have been, as part of my COVID quarantine, I'm going to spring this on you, Brett. I've also been doing a little bit of geek reading. And I've been reading this book that Jonathan Brady, former contributor for Revenge of the Fans, kept recommending to me. It's called Superman Smashes the Klan. And when I'm done with it, I'm going to lend it to you. If you haven't read it yet, I strongly recommend it. Yeah.
Sounds awesome.
Checking out this story, it's giving me ideas for how I would like the next Superman reboot to sort of take shape and take form. And I wanted to ask you, do you think we need to see Superman's origin ever again?
No, it's the same reason. Like, I don't need to see Batman's parents getting murdered anymore. We've seen it 1,000 times. I think even people that don't know Batman or care about Batman know how it happened. And it's the same thing. Like, we don't need to see the Spider-Man origin again. And Marvel, smartly, dodged that with No Way Home. They were just like, oh, he's been bitter already. He's been doing it for a year. Like he's in his little homemade costume. So yeah, I mean, most of these characters, especially now, like within the last decade, with just how ubiquitous and mainstream all the superhero stuff is, I don't ever need to really see these origins again, unless you're going to do something really new and different. And most people, I feel like, think they're doing something new and different, and they're not, and it's just kind of lame. So we don't need to see it. Just get me in there. Get me into the action. Let me see what's going on.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm very much in this mindset now of almost like what Matt Reeves did with the Batman. Give me a year 2 story. We've already seen a couple of year 1 Superman type stories where and we do the origin and then the Smallville sequence, and then he goes to the fortress and he gets the suit and he becomes Superman. Like, we've seen that arc already through the Christopher Reeve Superman the movie and through Man of Steel. And this time I feel like I would love to just start the story and there's already a Superman.
Yeah. Okay? And I want to throw a little love at Man of
Yeah.
Steel because I really love their depiction of
Yes.
that whole young Clark and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
That's like the
Yeah,
part of the movie that's
and that's
super
part of
hit
my
for me.
point. Yeah. And that's part of my point here too. Is like it's already not only has it already been done, it's been done really well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because whether it's the Richard Donner, Christopher Reeve version, or it's the Zack Snyder, Henry Cavill version, I feel like we've seen a proper version of the traditional origin story done really well two different times. So this time around, I'd be fine if we totally skip that. And I would even borrow some more from Superman Smashes the Klan, though, because what's unique about this is Clark himself doesn't seem to fully know everything about himself yet. And it's kind of built into the story because like he's almost got a little bit of shame of his alien heritage. He doesn't want to think of himself as being some UFO. He wants to be one of us so desperately that he's like basically avoided learning everything he could about his past, about what his true heritage is.
That's cool.
And he's already Superman. He's making saves. His mom made him the suit in this version, and he does have that desire to go out there and help, but he's still not fully sure what he is. And as part of the story in real time, he's also learning more about his past and also what the full extent of his abilities are. It's all happening in real time throughout the story. And I feel like that would be a real neat thing that we haven't seen in movies yet. Usually by the time he's in the suit, he already pretty much knows all his powers, and he's already learned everything about his Kryptonian heritage and why his parents sent him there and what happened at Krypton. In Superman Smashes the Klan, he's figuring that out with us. And I feel like that would be cool for a reboot too, because then if you do want to flash back to certain key moments that perhaps show how this is different than what we already used to, we're learning it with Clark, and he's a relatable hero for us, because just as it's going to blow our minds where he's from, it's going to blow his mind, and we're going to see the impact of him learning what it is to find out you're the orphan of a dead planet and all that. Like to actually go through that with our hero, I feel like would be a pretty valuable way to approach the story.
It's a unique superhero story, I think.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think like what other characters really have that,
I know it's and then on top of that too, specifically with the abilities, like he can't even fly yet. He's still just leaping with a single bound. He's still like in Superman Smashes the Klan, he's still literally just figuring it out. And I feel like when you have a fandom where some people tend to feel like, Superman's overpowered and this and that, having him be a guy who's still figuring it out and still doesn't even know how strong he is yet is another neat way to kind of counteract that. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
He's not all super powerful right from the start, So I just wanted to see if you were with me on the fact that whenever there is a Superman reboot to talk about, I would be fine if it's a story that doesn't tell us the origin and just kind of hits the ground running with the year 2 story. You like that too? Yeah. So look, unfortunately, there's nothing too concrete to talk about Superman, but we can talk a little bit about his friends, because you see, a very unfortunate thing happened after the Academy Awards, because at the Academy Awards, Ezra Miller, The Flash, Zack Snyder's Justice League in general got the greatest bit of free publicity ever. When that Flash moment from Zack Snyder's Justice League won the fan cheer moment, that was like that was a beautiful way to start getting people excited for Ezra Miller's The Flash movie, and unfortunately, within about 24 to 48 hours of the Oscars ceremony, Ezra Miller got arrested in Hawaii at a karaoke bar having some confrontation with people there. And then there was another couple who filed a restraining order. And this comes a few months after he posted some weird threat to the KKK. Wow, smashing the Klan is a big
Ezra Miller
theme today. Yeah. Ezra Miller smashes the Klan. He posted something about like, where you should kill yourselves with your own guns or we're going to get you too. And listen, I don't mind the sentiment. You want to threaten the KKK,
right.
Have
it's kind of weird to like just post that though.
Yeah. And
And
then
a year
the
ago,
last,
then he had a thing where he like choked
that's what I
someone.
was getting at. Yeah, there was a thing where he like choked some girl, and it's on video, and it's like, you know, he's been a bit of a PR disaster now for a little over a year, at least, I'd say. And Rolling Stone published an exclusive report claiming that Warner Brothers scheduled a emergency meeting just to discuss what the hell do we do about this Ezra Miller situation. But Brett, you heard that got debunked, right?
Yeah, there was a lot of places that reported that. Then came out that there was like a source. I don't know if they were also from Rolling Stone or some other source,
No,
but
it
that
was someone
that
from
wasn't
Warner
true.
Brothers came out.
Yeah,
To
Warner
like,
Brothers source that
yeah.
wasn't true, and it's being like over exaggerated. And
But see, but that's what makes me think it is true, by the
yeah,
way, because
you're
they're
probably
not
right.
saying, yeah, they're not saying we didn't have this conversation. They're just saying they exaggerated the full extent of the conversation. All right, so maybe they're not, having a full tilt meltdown at Warner Brothers and they had to call everyone in and have this emergency meeting and everything is on hold until we figure this out. Maybe it's not quite all that. But it does seem like they had a conversation. And I think we should have a conversation because, with Ezra Miller seemingly becoming a bit of a liability, the talk about possibly recasting him has come up. And listen, the movie doesn't come out for another 14 months. We still have till June 23rd of 2023. Remember, this is the same studio that remade Justice League in like 4 months leading up to Justice League coming out. So they've got 14 months if they want to figure out a creative way to segue Ezra Miller out somewhere in that movie. So
For the benefit of myself and
Yeah.
listeners, the movie delay happened before this incident occurred, correct?
Yes.
That makes a difference to it. It says a
Yes,
little
to
bit.
be quite clear, yes, they changed the dates. I want to say like a month and a half, 2 months ago, and all this recent brouhaha with Ezra Miller has been in the last like 10 days. So it's
Yeah.
not related to Ezra Miller's legal troubles. But either way, now they do have the benefit of this delay, which gives them some time to figure out what to do. So, Brett, let me just ask you your gut here on all this. Point blank. Should Warner Brothers recast Ezra Miller as the Flash?
I mean, you're talking about reshooting like this entire film with a new actor.
No. Okay, to be clear,
Or just like maybe work somebody in new to close out that film and segue into a new actor.
yeah, using the multiverse and the fact that these heroes can look different, right? Where we're going to see the Ben Affleck Batman, we're going to see the Michael Keaton Batman. So we're establishing that the same hero can look differently depending on which end of the multiverse they're from. They could conceivably find some way that at the end of I don't know. I mean, listen, I don't know how they would really do it, but I think there's a way to do it.
Yeah.
Would you want them to find a way where, like, at the end of the movie, the Barry that is now our main Barry is not played by Ezra Miller? Would you be,
Yeah.
do you think they should do something like that?
I mean, at this stage, I just listen. It's a little troubling, and definitely from a PR standpoint, it is, and it's troubling to hear about. He's
And actually, it's they. To
They
be
are,
clear,
yes.
they.
I'm
Yeah.
correcting myself now too. They are a very young actor, and
Yeah.
listen, people have trouble sometimes. Hopefully, they can get the help they need, and this is just a non-issue. I don't think at this point they need to go ahead and do anything, brash. If there are more incidents or they are not well, then maybe we should have that conversation. But at this point, no. And again, like I want to see Ezra in a solo Flash film.
Yes.
Not that is Andy Muschietti, a new director, a new kind of view on the character. I want to see that, away from all the Zack Snyder and the group setting and what that vision was. So no, I don't think we should throw him out yet. I mean, listen, if it ends up being that like they're not happy with stuff they shot and it's not good, because I understand, I know from some other like big Flash fans, Ezra's interpretation, or I don't know if you want to call it Ezra's interpretation or Snyder's interpretation of the character, is not quite how Barry Allen is in the comics. So I've definitely heard or seen that sentiment around on like Twitter and like social media. So I think for some people they kind of think it's a little bit of a weird casting, but I want to see what they can do in a solo film. So at this
I'm
point,
glad you said that.
yeah, not too alarmed.
Mm-hmm.
Hope they get help. Hope there are no more incidents.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if something else goes down, I think you really need to strongly consider doing that.
I agree. And I'm glad you said that because like when these stories started coming out last week, the big thing was, yeah, let's replace him. Let's bring in Grant Gustin from the Arrowverse. And everyone's doing their fan casting about who else could possibly be a good replacement. And I'm like, listen, when I hear these stories, I hear that somebody's going through something. Yeah. Somebody is in a weird, dark place and is sort of spiraling. And my first instinct is, how do we help them? So here's hoping the studio intervenes in some way and offers him some kind of support. I know that may sound a little bit like, well, why would they do that? He's just, he's an actor, whatever. But Warner Brothers believes a great deal in Ezra Miller. Not only was he cast as the Flash in their DC property, but they also cast him in as a recurring major role in their Harry Potter spinoff here in the Fantastic Beasts movies. And then for a little while there, and I mean, now Timothée Chalamet has it, but they had even cast him as a young Willy Wonka for a little while there in that new young Willy Wonka that's coming out. And the point is, even though Chalamet has the role now,
who asked for that movie?
I don't know, but that's a whole other. We can get to that one at some point. Yeah. But someone at Warner Brothers loves Miller. At a certain point in these last few years, they wanted to be in the Ezra Miller business. They've invested a lot of time. And he's a very talented actor. I've been a fan of his.
Talk about Heaven. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but
no, I never saw that one. But did you ever see City Island?
Really good.
City Island, directed by Andy Garcia.
Freaking amazing. I'll have to watch City Island. We need to talk about Kevin.
All right, we should have an Ezra Miller tit for tat. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so the studio seems to agree with us that this was a very gifted, very talented, very young, bright, rising star. And they put him into these blockbuster movies, and he's out there having a lot of trouble in his personal life. And here's just hoping that they step in and try to offer some sort of help, maybe send him to rehab or help him with counseling or something, because, working in all these movies, by the way, there's a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of stuff that has to do with being, on different parts of the world, away from home, on press tours, and feeling alienated, and you're part of all these IPs and meetings, and they're making action figures out of you, and there's so many different pressures that come
and having your movie change directors and script and be delayed,
to mention, exactly,
years in a row or however many years.
Not to mention,
that might drive someone crazy.
Everything that happened with Zack Snyder's Justice League, the 89 different delays this Flash movie has had on its way to theaters. The guys, they've put him through the ringer too. So here's hoping that they don't just go and try to wash their hands with the guy and say, oh, well, you're having some issues, so bye. So I'm with you. I'm not in some rush to recast them. I hope that Ezra is able to get the help and whatever else they need to kind of get back on track, because I do think that they're a very talented actor and there's a huge upside there. And I still believe in their Barry Allen, the Flash. I know that, like you said, there are some hardcore Flash fans who don't necessarily love his characterization, but I've liked what I've seen so far, especially in Zack Snyder's Justice League. So if he's going to build on that portrayal, I want to spend more time with this guy's Barry. So here's hoping, or this person's Barry. Here's hoping that that they get things back in order and that Warner Brothers doesn't just bail on them. But who else Warner Brothers hasn't bailed on, Brett?
I do know.
So there's been a lot of talk ever since Warner Brothers and Discovery have been going through this merger process, which now seems to be official and has gone through. Now they are officially Warner Brothers Discovery. The new CEO coming into town from Discovery, it was expected that he was going to basically clean house And there are certain names from the previous Warner Brothers or Warner Media administration who have now disappeared. Ann Sarnoff promptly exited last week. Jason Kilar, who had once been like the head or a very prominent voice at HBO Max, is now gone. But the two names that have remained that have shocked some in the DC fandom are Toby Emmerich and Walter Hamada. As of now, they have been retained, and it looks like the CEO of Discovery is going to keep them on board running their respective divisions. Same thing with Casey Bloys, who's the person who's been the head of HBO Max. So when it comes to Emmerich and Hamada and Bloys, they are staying in place. And I kind of want to just break that down a little bit, though, because I think the timeline of when these people got involved is important, because there's a lot of people who want their heads to roll. They look at everything that happened with Batman versus Superman leading into Zack Snyder's Justice League as being on these guys' doorstep, but not so fast, because Toby Emmerich was hired to head Warner Brothers Film Studios, the film division, at the very end of 2016, in December of 2016. So he came on.
Yeah, you thought you could shake me.
Toby Emmerich, yeah. So he came on at the end of 2016. That is after Batman versus Superman had its big issues back in March of that year. This is after Suicide Squad came out in August of that year. So Toby Emmerich, by and large, I think the industry and the people perhaps doing the research on who to keep and who not to keep, they view Toby Emmerich as someone who came in at a time when Warner Brothers and DC Entertainment in particular were at a real low point, and it was a real mess. And he was there to basically clean up a crazy mess that had been created by the people before him, people like Greg Silverman, who he took over for. So I think that's how he's been able to sort of skirt around all this. He came in at the end of 2016. He doesn't have the stink of BVS and Suicide Squad on him, but he was technically in charge for all of 2017 when the insane reshoots of Justice League and all the stuff with Joss Whedon was happening. So I can understand why there is a certain segment of the fan base who wants to see this guy's head roll. But for better or worse, he came on after that. And from 2017 on, after Justice League, Warner Brothers and DC have been on a moderate winning streak, especially with the $1 billion Aquaman that came out at the end of 2018. So, that goes on Toby's resume, because that movie came out almost 2 years after he got the job. And the other name that everyone was upset at was Walter Hamada, but he got hired even later. He got hired in like January of 2018. So he really has nothing to do with all of the previous craziness. And I just bring all this up so that I know that there is a very vocal, very loud contingency of fans that I see over on the Twitter who just want Hamada and Emmerich gone. But really, they're not responsible for half the stuff that you're upset about. For like the vast majority of the stuff that went crazy these last 6 years with DC, it didn't really happen because of decisions that they made. And Hamada in particular, since he's been there, Birds of Prey, Shazam, Joker, The Batman, all these films have come out and they've all turned a profit. They've all been critically well accepted. And why would you fire a guy when that's his track record thus far? So I don't think it was ever realistic that these guys were heading out. But now, of course, the big question is what happens when their contracts come up? Because some people say maybe he's keeping them there until their deals go up later this year, and then they're going to get replaced. Yeah. I guess we'll
need a
see.
Transition, or something like that.
Yeah, but either
get
way,
everything ready for when you leave,
Yeah,
kind of deal.
Yeah. But then again, people think like if that were going to happen, they would have just flown the coop like Sarnoff and Kilar did, because who wants to stick around when you're like a dead man walking, knowing you're about to get replaced in a few months, Right. So I have a sense that these guys aren't going anywhere. And if you're a fan of DC Entertainment and DC on Film, you're going to have to get pretty used to seeing them. And it also probably doesn't bode well for that full-on restoration of the Snyderverse that some are hoping for, because Toby Emmerich and Walter Hamada do not seem to be in favor of that sort of thing at all. And the fact that they're still in positions of power means that Discovery seems to be fine with that too, you know? So
That train's left the station.
so there you go. There is your Superman-ish update into the latest DC rumors. And instead of talking about this DC franchise and all of its controversy and its past issues, let's talk about a great success that's happening in Hollywood right now, Brett. Because look, you know better than anyone. You are the video game guy, and you've been watching for years as Hollywood has taken all these swings and misses at trying to adapt video games for the big screen. And at long last, we've got a successful video game adaptation. And Brett, it's Sonic the Hedgehog.
I know, of all properties,
of all the
been able to get a game right, and I don't know how long.
Yeah,
but they finally broke the curse. Although I will add a caveat.
Oh, go for it.
Detective Pikachu was really good, actually. I don't know if you saw it.
I did see. No, I did see that.
I'm pretty sure that movie did pretty well, but I'd have to see the numbers compared to Sonic 2.
Yes.
Or whatever.
Well, the deal with Sonic, I mean, look, it just opened to $71 million. It's got something like over 140 global so far. It opened bigger than its predecessor, which is always a big thing you want to see with a sequel, right? So it opened bigger than the first Sonic the Hedgehog, which was already considered a success, which is why we got the sequel. And what's going to be interesting too is critically, it's just a smidgen better. It's just a smidge better. Sonic the Hedgehog got a 63 on Rotten Tomatoes, and Sonic the Hedgehog 2 got 67. So they got a 4% increase in the quality department. But it has the same exact cinema score. And remember, that is the fan grade given. Right. Cinema score is done by in-person polling of the fans who show up on opening night for the movie. We're on their way out. A random sampling of opening night cinema goers are asked, what did you think of the movie? So cinema score is a great gauge for how much the fans are into your product, because the people who come Friday night, they are your most eager fans. So if they're not impressed, you've got danger, Will Robinson. Right. So the original Sonic the Hedgehog in 2020 got an A, and Sonic the Hedgehog 2 got an A. So that tells me that this is going to have legs. This is going to have good word of mouth. The people who loved the original are going to show up and see this one, including people who didn't see it in theaters but caught it on home video during the pandemic. Now they might be like, oh, but that Sonic 2 movie is in theaters. I want to go see that now, Right. So it's going to be interesting to see in the weeks ahead what kind of legs Sonic 2 has. But what can you believe that we finally have a successful video game movie, Brett?
Well, Mario, Sonic has fast legs, so just I don't know if you're familiar with the character.
Oh, don't do it.
Yeah, legs are real fast.
That was the worst thing you've ever said.
It's not the worst. So I saw Sonic the Hedgehog, the first one. I didn't see it in theaters. I saw it when it came to digital video.
Oh, you're one of those. Yeah.
Listen. Both of these movies, I haven't seen the second one yet. I think I might try to go see it this week. But because I am actually interested in seeing it. But they're unabashedly made for kids. Yes. Make no mistake, they're not trying to even really toe the line like a Pixar movie where it's for kids and adults. No, this is for kids. So for some people, they're not gonna be able to shake that. But I understand for Sonic 2, what I'm hearing is that they totally upped the game and game references and Easter eggs.
It seems like it, yeah,
to the nth degree. Jim Carrey is supposed to be at his most Jim Carreyest, and apparently it's hitting all the right notes. You got a little gravitas with Idris Elba voicing Knuckles. Ben Schwartz is doing an awesome job as Sonic, and
John Ralphio,
Colleen. And I don't know her last name. I feel like it's O'Doherty or something like that. I could be totally wrong. It's Colleen something. The actual voice of Tails from the game.
It's the actual Tails, yeah.
Which is a really nice, nod for fans. Yep. So all that put together, and you just have success. It seems like they're hitting all the right notes.
Yeah.
You know, and
And
that's great to hear. It's great to
it's great
see.
to hear.
I'm happy.
And not to mention, though, this is a testament to how good things can go when you listen to the fans. Because do you remember how when we got our first look at Sonic, there was a huge backlash? A
Oh,
backlash so loud that they had to go and redo the design of the character. There was already a trailer. There had already been a
yeah.
team of people who had rendered Sonic looking a certain way, and Paramount heard the critique, paused the movie, invested millions more to make a more accurate depiction of our Sonic, and look how well that paid off.
I mean, the movie was shot and done, I think,
Yeah,
almost too. So
it
I
was
don't even
done.
think they weren't really able. I don't know. I mean, I don't know for 100%. Maybe they did some
Yeah.
reshoots, but I think for the most part, they had to like what do you call it? Like just like backward edit like
They had to just
the
delete.
new look in
Yeah,
and just kind of account for like the height differences and the new design of the CG
yeah,
character, and I guess try to just make sure that like the actors looked like they were looking at the new
yeah,
or they
yeah.
retrofit is the word I wanted to kind of use right there. But yeah, apparently they did that, and listen, it worked out. It was the right move, and I don't even honestly I don't know what anyone was thinking with that initial design.
Yeah.
It was
But
bizarre.
honestly, I'm just relieved that the fans actually showed up, because one of the fears was, people love to just complain online and trash things online, right? So the fear was, what if people went nuts over that Sonic design? Paramount pauses everything, invests millions of dollars to make a better looking Sonic movie for people, and then they still just don't show up to see the movie.
Right.
And then it was like, damn, you guys just like to complain. But no, it actually worked out. The fans complained, the studio listened, and the fans showed them the love. The Sonic fans came out en masse to go, okay, you gave us a real looking version of our Sonic, a legit adaptation of our Sonic. Now we're going to give you our hard-earned money. So to me, that's a nice happy ending, and it shows how well things can go when you actually do listen to the fans. See, fans aren't just cynical, impossible to please idiots. We can actually show up and support.
We just want to see our properties as gamers like faithfully adapted, and everyone most times when they make a game movie, they fail to capture what makes the game I can't talk, the games or the characters special. And finally, like Jeff Fowler, I think, who directed the first one and this one, they got it. They figured it out and they made something really special. I'm excited to see it. Just I know it's going to be a kids movie, but I'm excited to see it just because I heard of like all these like really cool Easter egg references and really cool moments. And like I know we talked about a few weeks ago, the even the poster just hit me in all the right.
I know.
Nostalgia with
hitting all the right marks. Yep.
So that's great. Like I hopefully like I hope this is the beginning of the next thing. Oh my god, this is stressful now. So
here we go.
We have a good Sonic movie. We have a second good Sonic movie, and as of right now, we haven't heard anything different. It could get moved, but we're supposed to be getting a Super Mario movie in December this year.
Chris Pratt.
I mean, Chris Pratt is Mario. I mean, it's all CG. I don't think they're doing like the hybrid live action CG. I think it's going to be all CG. Chris Pratt is Mario, which I'm interested to hear that. But I mean, the rest of the cast is actually I'm all on board with. Chris Pratt's the only one where I'm kind of like, I don't know. So let's see. I mean, if anyone can do it, it's Nintendo. But I mean, like Mario has a string of better games than Sonic, and I think is still like kind of the bigger character. So they really gotta step it up. Hopefully
well, dude, it can only get better because I legit cried at the first movie adaptation of Super Mario Brothers with Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo.
It was a fever dream nightmare.
I remember I cried. I don't know how. I was probably too old to be crying about this
because it was so bad, or you were scared?
Yeah, like I remember I being at a movie theater on Lexington Avenue and 86th Street in the Upper East Side of Manhattan with my father. My father was very excited to take me to this because he knew I was a huge Nintendo fan and it's Super Mario and my son is Mario. This is going to be a home run. And I remember like Toad was this big idiot in a trench coat and a tiny little reptile head. Okay. Toad. Okay.
No,
And
Toad was. It was even worse. Those were the Goombas. Toad
Yeah.
was like a weird street musician with like weird hair, and I think he got like killed, didn't he?
No, but like Toad is set on fire at some point in the movie. And I'm like, they set Toad on fire. Like I legit, I welled up with tears. Like, what are they doing to my heroes? What are they doing to like, Nintendo meant something to me. See, so there you go. You got to be faithful with your adaptations. I'm so glad that we're not in that phase of Hollywood anymore, where it's like, yes, we're going to adapt it, but we're going to change 95% about it. Yeah, that's how things used to be. Now it seems to be more like, no, we're going to really try to stay true to what people love about these characters and about this property. Because I cried when they burnt Toad in the first movie. All right. So as long as they don't burn Toad, I can deal with Chris Pratt as Super Mario. Okay. It can only get better from there. But okay, so speaking of getting better, I hope Jared Leto gets better with his acting choices. Have you heard this news about some of his antics on the set of Morbius and his method acting? Have you heard about any of this?
Oh, I've heard about it, and it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life.
It's the most ridiculous thing. I want to just read one of the crazy things making the rounds, and then you and I can respond, especially because you and I are actors and we've dealt with actors and we've had to be in productions with actors who take things perhaps a little too seriously sometimes. But here's what the director of Morbius, Daniel Espinosa, had to say. And it sounds like he's trying really hard to be very diplomatic about this. But when asked about it, because basically there's a story that like even in between takes, he was acting as if he was in pain and in crutches and all this agony, and he had to like limp his way or practically be wheeled or carried to the bathroom in between takes because he couldn't do it himself and this and that.
He insisted on walking with the walkers in between takes, and apparently it led to like 45-minute bathroom breaks where he was just like, everyone was just sitting around, which is just like, forget about it, man. Just so.
And this is after the stories from Suicide Squad where he's delivering gifts that have used
blood-filled condoms,
and like used condoms and live rats and just insanity. But here's what Daniel Espinosa had to say. He said, because I think that what Jared believes is that somehow the pain of those movements, even when he was playing normal Michael Morbius, he needed, because he's been having this pain his whole life, even though as he's alive and strong, it has to be a difference. Hey, man, it's people's processes. All of the actors believe in processes, and you as director, you support whatever makes it as good as you can be. He sounds a little bit like, what can I say? It's all true what you've heard. And he believed that this is what he had to do. And there have been a couple of people who've had something to say about these kinds of techniques lately, right, Brett?
Yeah, so there was recently, it wasn't like I don't think in direct response to this report, but Mads Mikkelsen, actor I'm a big fan of. I believe you're also a big fan of his.
Oh yeah.
He had an interview with like
Le Chiffre.
Le Chiffre. With the
I think about him hitting James Bond's balls with that rope with the
knotted rope.
Yeah, it's terrible. All right.
So that's a nightmare. So yeah, he had an interview with like Variety or something, and he was asked about method acting, and he basically, I'm paraphrasing, but it was just like, it's ridiculous. And he's like, and what if he's like, what if the movie you're in is bad? Then what did you do all that stuff for? It's just a waste of time. Ridiculous. And then also Will I think it's Poulter. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but he's gonna be in he's playing what's his face? Gold guy. Adam Warlock in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. He got cast. He also just had some comments on it, and he was like, listen, he's like, the method acting, like, that's cool if you want to do it, but when it becomes like where you're being disrespectful to the crew or to the cast, or you're interfering with other people's processes and it's disruptive, he's like, then I'm not on board. And like, he's like, there are a lot of people that unfortunately like do that and think it's giving them like the best performance. And he's like, I don't think it's entirely necessary. So yeah, there's a certain point, like where we went to college, they practice, like, we'll get into the weeds a little bit, but we practice like, psychological realism, which is like the Stanislavski, field of acting. And, that is kind of where, method acting is sort of born from. But, this stuff where like, Jared Leto's taking these 45-minute bathroom breaks. I mean, there are people that like want to get home to their families. Film shoots I've been on both sides. I've been on sets. I've shot pilots. I've also crewed on actual films that like, so
it's a long day.
Some of these guys 12. I did a 16-hour day, like, and listen, the pay is not good. Like, basic scale is like 125 for the day. You might get overtime after like 12 hours or so. 12 hours, you're getting $125. Like, that was at the time a couple of years ago. That's what you're getting. And I was interning, so I got paid nothing. All right, so that's how it was.
Yeah.
So,
and imagine you have some preening prima donna lead actor who's like, no, I need to take my 5th 45-minute bathroom break.
Like, I get it if you want to stay in character between scenes. And again, as long as you're not like doing anything that's disrupting other people's processes. But then when you're going to the bathroom and you're like, oh, I have to walk with these crutches. And then apparently like they had the level with them. They were like, dude, these 45-minute bathroom breaks are like ridiculous. Because like, listen, if you go 2-3 times, that's like 2 hours of the day, like gone. Which is ridiculous. So they apparently,
especially when you're looking at an able-bodied man, like you're staring. Imagine the absurdity.
Yeah, do your research, practice at home, or like on your own time, like getting into that. And then you do something called, we'll go back to the Stanislavski method. It's called emotional recall.
Yes.
So you kind of, you do some of that work outside of the set, and then you get that in your head and you can go recall that. But you don't need to be living that exact moment. I mean, listen, there was Tales, right? There was, and they did a documentary on it. Jim Carrey, he was doing Man on the Moon. Classic story, which I think Timothy Oliphant came out and said that documentary was pretentious. But apparently he was like an asshole to everybody on set, like being in character as Andy Kaufman. And
but Andy Kaufman now maybe this is just the Jim Carrey apologist in me, but I kind of feel like because of Andy Kaufman in particular, because of the fact that like the way he was with his cast members and the way like you never really knew, is he messing with me or is this an act or what? I can kind of get why Jim would do it in that for that to play. Andy Kaufman.
He might be like the one, whatever, like exception.
But there are lots of guys who are taking it too far.
Yeah, Christian Bale, famously, right, on Terminator Salvation, had that famous leaked rant where he flipped out on the lighting thing. And actually, if you remember his apology, he kind of blamed it on like the character and like all the stuff. And I was like, that's kind of a cop out.
Yeah, I'm playing this general, whatever.
Will Smith even kind of did the cop out with the slap when he did his acceptance speech.
Really?
Oh, Richard Williams was a fierce defender of family, and he tried to like use that as like why he slapped, like in a roundabout way, and it was really lame. So enough with this shit. Like, Jared Leto's like, he's weird, man. I don't know, like it's too much. All right, like and listen, and again, Mads Mikkelsen said it best. What if the movie you're in is not good? Like, who are you impressing? I mean, what did you do all that work for? And
that's apparently what happened on a different Jared Leto project. Yeah. Apparently, I haven't seen it, but that House of Gucci. That's one where he went full method for his Gucci character. And apparently Lady Gaga also did. And she spoke in Gucci's like Italian accent for like a year, even when she wasn't.
I don't mind the voice stuff, but when
because that does take practice. You want to get the rhythm. Yeah. But meanwhile, apparently that Gucci movie was a big turkey. So it's like, again, you put all this passion and effort into something that ended up being
Suicide Squad, big turkey.
Or Morbius,
big Big turkey.
Although, listen, Suicide Squad, in Jared Leto's defense, I'm still of the belief that David Ayer's original cut probably would have been way better than what we got in theaters. And
Yeah, absolutely.
according to Leto, so much of his performance ended up on the cutting room floor. I'd love to see what the hell that was. You know,
Yeah,
people say like, "Oh, Jared Leto's Joker sucked." I'm like, we barely saw him. You know, we got like 7 minutes with him in Suicide Squad and like 4 in Zack Snyder's Justice League. I haven't seen enough to judge yet. But when it comes to Leto and all this stuff too, like, I think you said it best, you know, to kind of break it into acting jargon. Cause like I've done some of that stuff too. I've gone borderline method at times, but it's always only in preparation. You know, like when I had to play a blind guy, you know, I did stuff where I blindfolded myself around the house and started learning how to like, you know, count my steps and learn how to like learn spatial awareness without really using your eyes for anything, you know. And I did it. I did this exercise once just to see how New Yorkers treat a blind man in the middle of the street walking through. Like, would they be kind to me? Would they be rude? Would people help me? Would people scoff at me? And I walked around with the blind cane and everything for like 4 miles through Manhattan. I learned all kinds of interesting things about how New York City people treat you. And then I was able to bring that to my portrayal and knowing, oh, this is what this guy's days are like. And this is what he hears when there's a lady, you know, basically crying with sympathy for how badly she feels for him, but doesn't realize I can hear you. And this is kind of uncomfortable. But anyway, so it has its merits.
Yeah, but you're not in the theater ruining rehearsal going, I'm going to try to find my way to the bathroom right now.
Exactly. As long as you're not being disrespectful to your fellow cast members, being disrespectful to the crew that's working really hard, then do all the prep work you want. But when you hear these stories, it's just selfish, disrespectful sort of grandstanding. That's how it comes off. And you know what, all this for a movie that, by the way, Morbius in weekend 2, listen, it had a good first opening weekend, but like movies with terrible word of mouth do, it dropped 74% in weekend 2. Right, Morbius is currently in a race to the bottom of the toilet. So once again, was it really worth it, Jared? Was it really worth it? But okay, so now we're going to move on to one other cool bit of news, right? You checked out this Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga, Brett?
Yeah, so we got a new Lego Star Wars game. It's called Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga, and I thought this would just be a nice little thing to touch on gaming.
Yeah, sure.
And, you know, we definitely have a big Star Wars fan base. I'm sure that listens to the show. So, Mario, have you played any of the Lego games before? Whether it's like Lego Star Wars, Potter?
Yeah, I mean, not to completion, but I've played a level here and there, and I always find them like charming and fun, and But yeah. So I've checked them out. I get the general idea.
Right. So they're definitely, you know, made for kids. They're very simplistic. All the previous versions of these games are basically like you're almost looking like a little diorama, and they usually have a lot of great. There's a lot of care put into them. They definitely put a lot of Easter eggs, a lot of references. There's always like a ton of different characters, and it's just fun. And I find it, as an adult, even I find the games fun, and I played quite a few. My favorite up to this point, actually, I think had been Lego Batman 2, which I don't know if you ever played that one, but it was really cool. If whenever you were Batman, the Danny Elfman theme played, and then if you played Superman and flew around, the John Williams theme would kick in.
I heard about that. I need to experience that. Yeah.
So there's been very little evolution of the series from the beginning. It was mostly like these little like diorama levels. Then they did kind of evolve it with Lego Batman 2 getting like an actual like open world like hub area. And they played, I think they also did like Marvel one after that, like a Marvel superheroes, and it had an open world Manhattan, Lego Manhattan, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So those are really, really fun. But for this one, this game's been in development for quite a while. They finally changed game engines, and they rebuilt this whole game from the ground up. So this game covers all 9 Star Wars movies.
Wow.
There are over 300 characters, more than like, I don't know, like 50 different like ships. Actual like Star Wars ships. Ton of Easter eggs and references, a lot of really, really deep cut fun stuff. And what's really cool about this, I just want to let everyone know, if you're not aware, they actually moved the camera down low, and it's kind of like a behind the back over the shoulder, and it's turned into like a third person action game now. They've also done a lot of stuff to combat. You can now counter, you can throw your lightsaber, there's lightsaber combos, you can use the force and throw objects.
Oh, that's awesome.
Do a lot of cool stuff. And if you played any Lego game, it's all about just breaking and beating the shit out of everything on screen and collecting those studs. But it is really, really, really well done. All the music is in the game. I was literally just the other day fighting Darth Maul with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, and Duel of the Fates was playing, and it was
that's so cool.
Of that like generator area that they fight in, and it was awesome. So make no mistake, still, for kids, still simplified, but they definitely put a lot more care into it. It is a little more complex than previous games. They've even added like a skill tree, so you can go around these like open hub worlds, which are really created with so much love. I mean, all of the areas. And what they did was like they've made things look like Lego bricks and built it up Lego bricks where they need to be, but for the most part, the environments are like 3D realistic, like kind of blended in. So like it looks like when you're on Endor, it looks like you're on Endor.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, they've done just a lot of stuff. I'm playing on PlayStation 5, so the graphics are actually really awesome. The lighting's great, just the way even like it reflects off the bricks and like all the different textures. There's so much going on screen, particles and effects. The sound effects are just spot on. It's just really cool. So I just wanted to give a shout out to that game. If you're on the fence or you're like, oh, I've played Lego games before, this really does make it a lot fresher, adds a little more depth, to the gameplay. There's so many fun little like secrets and hidden, things you can find to upgrade your characters. They've even gone so far as to split characters into different types of classes, and each class has there's like a scavenger, there's a scoundrel, like which would be like Han Solo and the blasters. There's the Jedi, of course. There's obviously astromechs, protocol droids. I mean, literally goes like that. And then each of them have their own little skill tree that can enhance like some of the capabilities they can do. And I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, I would say check that out if you have any interest.
And that's I assume that's on every platform, right?
I believe it is on everything. Yeah, you can get it on Switch, Xbox, and PS5. I don't know about PC, maybe. And it is 2-player co-op, local co-op. They may have online too. I'm not 100% positive, but 100% they have local co-op, drop in, drop out. So yeah, really, really neat stuff.
You should tweet out that article from Polygon about the weird droid encounter.
Really quick. There's a deep cut like reference, and it's funny because I didn't know about this, but I did encounter this little character. There's a deep cut reference to one of the Star Wars novelizations that Disney has now decided those aren't canon. They're like Star Wars legends, but literally this is the people who made this game went this far. There's a reference to a protocol droid that appeared in one of these Star Wars novelizations called Nobot. And apparently like there's some like weird dark like references or allusions in the novel that like he either witnessed or possibly killed like a pregnant woman in the novel. So there's this one little part where I was in Mos Espa and I run into this weird like little house that I was able to go into, and all of a sudden you just see this like creepy looking like C-3PO droid just kind of pop out with this like just dead face, just like and you're like, what the hell? And then he like runs away through like a hallway. So I was like, what is that? So I chased him and I'm like looking around, and then all of a sudden like in the corner you just see it like run by again. You're like, it's like scary. They play music too. It's really funny. And then you're like, there's this one part where you just see him pop out again and it just pans in on his dead lifeless face. Like and it is incredible. And then he runs through this like other area, and it's like I couldn't access it because I needed like a different type of character to like, I don't know, have, like, there's certain things like it's like if there's gold bricks, you need like a bounty hunter character, and they're late to break those. So it was very early on, and like I was playing episode 1, I think, so I hadn't unlocked any bounty hunters yet. And oh my god, it was tremendous. And then I just read this article that is a reference to some weird, creepy character. So a lot of really, really, really fun stuff.
You should tweet that out. That article is
Yeah.
hilarious.
Like, just for the story, it's really funny and it's actually really creepy. But yeah, I can't believe it. There's been some other really, really fun, just little goofy references and things. And I heard there's some really, really neat sight gags, even like later on, like in Rise of Skywalker. Apparently, there's like a really, really funny sight gag. I didn't want to spoil it for myself, so I don't know yet. I'm only into I think I'm like midway through maybe episode 2 right now. I just got to see Anakin slaughter all those sand people after finding his mother dead.
Like you do. Gotcha.
So, hey, check it out.
Nice.
Pod Everything's Wizard. All right.
All right. All right. Now, look, before we get into our Moon Knight episode 2 reactions, we got one listener topic. And let me just remind you folks, if you ever have a question or a topic you'd like us to sound off on, you just go ahead and send an email to the fanboypodcast@gmail.com. And that's exactly what I have here today, Brett.
Very good.
Kyle Leinen, or Lanen, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but Kyle Leinen, we're going to go with, has emailed the fanboypodcast@gmail.com. He said, "Hello, fellas. Great listen."
Hey, Kyle.
And that's it. And then that was the whole topic. No. Great listen. Would the Batgirl have to be, I guess he means the Batgirl movie. So would the Batgirl movie have to be pushed back until after June of 2023, since Keaton's Batman is being established first in The Flash, and then he makes an appearance in Batgirl? Or is Batgirl being established in Keaton's timeline first before the crossover in The Flash? No change has been reported on Batgirl's release date of late 2022. Thanks for your time. Well, thank you, Kyle, for taking the time to send in the question. I think he makes a very, very good point, right?
Yeah.
Like, we know that the Michael Keaton Batman is supposed to mentor this new Batgirl. And mind you, this movie is straight to HBO Max. All right. This is straight to streaming. Okay. So we know that in this straight to streaming Batgirl movie, Michael Keaton's Batman will be a mentor figure. But we also know that the movie that's going to bring him back into the mix at all is going to be The Flash. And that movie, which was originally going to be coming out later this year and probably would have come out right before Batgirl and all would have worked nicely together, has now been bumped back, like we said, to June of 2023. So Kyle brings up a really good point. And honestly, I'm shocked that they haven't announced a delay yet. Because don't you think that would be a little anticlimactic to have Michael Keaton's momentous return to the role of Batman be on a straight to streaming HBO Max Batgirl movie, Brett? Would that be anticlimactic as all hell to you?
It would be anticlimactic, and it just, I don't know if it would make sense, like with the timeline, even though the timeline's about to get split apart with the Flash.
Yeah.
I don't think that, it would just be really weird to have him be there, and then they're gonna have to explain that was like, that takes place after this movie that's coming out after.
Yeah.
They do some weird, I mean, actually, I was gonna say, originally I was gonna say maybe they're gonna add like a peek of the future or something as like an after credit sequence in Aquaman, but that got pushed too to next year. I don't think that's here anymore. So I was like, I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah. I don't think there's any way they could do that. I really don't. And what's interesting too is, and this to me, this is just more of like a tangent or a subplot in all this, which is that Christina Hodson has low key become like a driving creative force for DC on film, because Christina Hodson wrote Birds of Prey,
right?
She wrote The Flash, and she wrote this Batgirl movie. So it's interesting to think at this time where, like, for a little while there, it looked like none of these movies are going to be too very closely connected. But then they hire Christina Hodson to write 3 of them. And you got to think with Michael Keaton's Batman factoring into both Batgirl and The Flash, Hodson has to have some sort of plan or a way that she wants these projects to work together. And I can't imagine Batgirl arriving first and spoiling the return of Keaton as Batman. So, Kyle, I think you're onto something, because they haven't delayed it yet, but I kind of think they have to. I think it would be a very ill-advised decision to kind of blow and waste Michael Keaton's momentous return to Batman for a straight to streaming Batgirl movie. So I think it's only a matter of time before we hear about it, about it getting pushed back. I know that they just wrapped like a week or two ago, so the movie is in the can, but I don't think we're seeing it before the Flash, and I think it's only a matter of time before they announce that. So thanks for sending in the question there, Kyle.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle.
And just as a special reminder, once again, folks, the Fanboy Podcast at gmail.com. Send your questions and comments and concerns there. And now we're going to wrap things up with just some quick thoughts, because look, there's no Superman and Lois to talk about. That will not be back until April 26th. So we've got a couple weeks now with no Superman and Lois to pine over. So we're going to talk a little bit about Moon Knight Season 1, Episode 2. If you're not watching the show, I just want to thank you for being with us this week. Hopefully you enjoyed episode 144 of the Fanboy Podcast. But if you are watching the show, let's go ahead and talk about this. So Brett, how did you like episode 2?
Yeah, so for me, episode 2, I probably liked it about as much as I liked episode 1. I think I was a little higher on it than you. I think I gave it like a 7 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give this episode a 7 out of 10. There's something not entirely clicking with me.
Yeah.
I think it's the tone. After watching, the thing that's keeping me watching is I love Oscar Isaac.
Yes.
And I do think he's doing some fun work and doing some great work. And, after seeing him in the suit and actually like all like the fight scenes are pretty cool. I'm into them. But there's something I kind of wish Marvel didn't decide to do this, like, I almost want to call it like this Venom kind of tone with it, or like, I think the comedic tone maybe was not the right call. I think they really should have kept it a little more serious and dramatic throughout. I think that would make the split personality stuff a little more engaging. There's just something not clicking for me. Also, I don't know what it is too. F. Murray Abraham is such a good actor. I love his voice. But it's like Khonshu looks so cool, and I just don't think the voice fits the Egyptian god.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's something, the tonally, it's weird. It hasn't quite found its footing. Ethan Hawke's very good. I find him like has this quiet menace to him.
Yep.
And I'm still intrigued at the story. I really want to see where it goes, but yeah, the tone is off for me. It's the tone, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, something that kind of helped me, I mean, I agree. The tone, it's a little goofy and it's a little kind of lighthearted, and yet it's dealing with stuff that's kind of definitely more serious and interesting. And I do find it just to be a little goofy, a little slapstick. But I was asking a buddy of mine who knows more about the character than I do, which is basically nothing. And I had remarked about the show being a little goofy. And they said that Moon Knight can often be portrayed almost Deadpool-like. So
I was
that
gonna say, like,
yeah. So then that makes me think, okay, so maybe it's not completely insane that they're going for something a little lighter hearted, but I still think it's just a little, it's still kind of goofy. Yeah, it's still just a little
not
too
done
much.
as well as Deadpool, and
not.
it's not even like, I didn't really like Venom Let There Be Carnage. That movie was kind of like a rush job.
Yeah.
But the first Venom, for what it was, I really liked the Venom Eddie Brock, relationship. I thought Tom Hardy had a lot of fun with that, and I could tell like Oscar Isaac's definitely invested. But yeah, it's not quite hitting in the way I think they want it to.
Yeah,
I really wish it was a little more serious and grounded, and I wish they kind of, honestly, I don't want to be like the dark, gritty guy, but maybe they should have went for more of like a Daredevil tone.
I mean, here's the thing. Just looking at Moon Knight's design, looking at that ancient Egypt sort of origin for it all, like, I feel like it needs almost like a Zack Snyder type of visual touch. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that, something about the way this is shot, it just seems so bright and nice and Disney and vivid. And I'm like, no, we need some shadows and some moody slow-mo and some stuff that kind of really sinks into like the epicness and darkness of some of this stuff that we're, getting into here. And yeah, for me, this episode was I liked it better. Last week, I'm not even sure I rated it, but I would have given the first episode like a 4 out of 10. This one, because now we're starting to fill in pieces of the mystery, and we have this interesting kind of reveal that Ethan Hawke was a previous avatar for this Egyptian god, and now the Egyptian god is turned on him, and now he wants to work for this different god who, instead of punishing people after they've done bad, actually punishes them before they've committed their evil.
They Minority Report it.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's totally Minority Report, but hey, listen, that's one of my all-time favorites, so it's fine. You can rip that one off. But so finding out about that sort of being the central conflict, and that's what Ethan Hawke's character is up to, trying to find the tomb of that god.
I think it's Amit or Amit. Is the one that Ethan Hawke is, and then Khonshu is the Egyptian god with Moon Knight. Yeah.
And we also found out more about, we found out about the wife, who was just a voice on the phone last week. This time we get to see her in person, and the interesting interplay between her and Steven, because she's married to Mark, but Steven seems to have no real idea who she is. Meanwhile, he speaks French and he's into the same stuff she's in. So, like, I'm still trying to figure out where this Steven alter ego even comes from.
Is Mark the original guy, and then Steven's alter ego, his mind created and fractured, or is Steven the real guy and Mark is the I don't know. Stuff's keeping me intrigued, and
So
the episode, I think I'm excited for episode 3 because it looks like we're going to Egypt now, and maybe we'll get that more darker, shadowy kind of
one can only hope
that we got through some of the slapstick and him kind of trying to come to peace with the fact that, hey, I have a split personality, and I guess I do have to let this guy take control every once in a while. There were some interesting revelations at the end of the episode with that.
So for me, if episode 1 was 4 out of 10, this one, I'm with you, 7 out of 10. I liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked it, and I'm starting to get a little more into just the world they're building here and finding out more about these characters. And listen, I'm on the ride, for better or worse. I'm here to check out where this goes. To me, I enjoyed episode 2 better than episode 1. I still wish it wasn't quite as goofy as it is, but that's what it is. And I think this is what episode 144 of the Fanboy Podcast was. So I hope everyone enjoyed this here episode. We're going to be back later this week on Friday with a second episode this week to make up for not having one for you last week. So I guess, from Brett and I, life is chaos.
Be kind.
Adios.